32, we will start the meeting. Lisa, can you do roll call?
Sure. Alder Carter.
Present.
Alder Abbas. Alder Harrington McKinney.
Present.
Alder Skidmore.
Here.
Alder Hennick.
Present.
Alder Tierney.
Present.
Alder Campbell.
Here.
Alder Bidar.
Present.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. And can we have the meeting protocols read? Thank you.
Yep. Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members of the committee, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you're speaking. Please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Staff, please use the raise hand feature when you're asked a question. In this meeting, all panelists are able to mute and unmute themselves. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk or chair will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. President Carter, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
We do have registrations on agenda number 3, public comment, Bonnie Rowe. Neither support or oppose, wishing to speak. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 registrants on agenda item number 9, with 2 wishing to speak and 1 available to answer questions.
Okay, so item number 9 is recommended action is re-refer to March 30th CCEC. So we wouldn't have comments on that if it's recommended to refer. Is Attorney Haas on?
Yes.
Am I correct on that, Attorney Haas?
Well, depends. I'm not sure what your committee's practice has been. If they, I mean, that's a recommended motion. I don't know if you typically take comments because you don't know until you act on it whether it's going to be re-referred.
Okay. Are those comments, Lisa, for they're ready to speak now?
We have registration on number 3, public comment. Bonnie Rowe is registered in neither support or oppose, wishing to speak.
Let's hear from Bonnie Rowe. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Hi, committee. I'll keep this short to respect your time, especially since this is pertinent to the topic at hand. But I know that there's concern about the city or the Common Council meetings going really long. And I saw Attorney Haas's suggestions for finding a way to shorten those meetings. I understand the desire for that. They are really long. However, I think the idea of having no public comments at Common Council and instead letting committees, et cetera, provide a summary is a really subpar option. As you may know, several of these committees and boards have few, if any, alders. Many are made up of a majority of people who do not support our police department. I'll just say it. For those of us residents, most likely the majority of our city who do support our Madison Police Department, we really value the opportunity to make our voices heard by you elected officials who represent a broader representation of our community. So I hope that public comments will still be allowed to go on at Common Council. And I don't know if there's been any thought given to having a weekly meeting as opposed to every other week. And then I guess that's all I have on this agenda item. I don't know if it's appropriate to speak on something off of the agenda having to do with furloughs. I will ask that, and if you want to let me talk about that, you can. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bonnie. The furloughs are not on the agenda. And it's been our practice to have comments on items that are on the agenda. But thank you very much. And Bonnie was the only one for public comment, correct?
And we have registrations on agenda item number 9.
Okay, that's fine.
And then just remember, we also have minutes to be approved.
Yep. Do we have any disclosures or recusals? Okay, then we'll go back to number 2, which is the approval of the minutes. We are approving both the February 25th special meeting and March 2nd CCE meeting. I will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
It's been properly moved. And do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any objections to me recording a unanimous vote for approval of the minutes? I see no objections, so I will record a unanimous vote approval of the minutes. We will take number 5. Is Ariel here today? There she is.
I am. Thank you so much.
Yep. You're going to provide an update?
I sure am. I'm going to share my screen. I think you guys are seeing my notes screen. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
All right, one moment. I'll switch those around. Okay. So this is the violence prevention update I have on behalf of Public Health Madison-Dane County. So today we have both violence prevention positions have been posted. The violence prevention coordinator position closed on Friday, and so that is moving forward in the hiring process. And the violence prevention manager position will close this upcoming Friday. So I will encourage you all, if you have any potential applicants, to please make sure that they get their applications in soon. We released the roadmap, better known as the Violence Prevention Roadmap or the Violence Prevention Plan, last week on March 10th. And since then, we have started the work in our focus areas that public health will be mainly responsible for. Both of those areas are within the data and coordination buckets, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But for the awareness of this committee, that includes, but is not limited to, developing and maintaining some data infrastructure in collaboration with our data partners in order to better effectively analyze, monitor, and communicate violence patterns and trends, not only to our partners, but also to the public at large. Convene the Madison and Dane County Violence Prevention Coalition to support the work that's outlined in this roadmap, and also help provide supports around delegation and execution of the work. Support the adoption and adaptation of evidence-based violence prevention strategies and programs. Facilitate continuous community engagement in the roadmap's refinement, the determination of priorities, and also its implementation at large. And also oversee support and develop standards of practice and indicators for evaluation of the roadmap. So just a few things that the team has already started to convene partners and start to work on. So I'll go through a brief overview. Hopefully you all had a chance to at least take a sneak peek at the plan, and if not, I'm happy to send it forth, and it can also be found on our website. But our roadmap centers on 5 major goals around data, engaging youth, children, youth, and families, strong neighborhoods, intervention and healing, and also coordination. And so again, I won't walk through the entire thing. That would take way too much time tonight, but I will just go over briefly each of the strategies in each bigger area. So again, we want to understand violence better in our community through data. Our strategies within this goal area include using timely, comprehensive data to prioritize and implement prevention efforts, create better methods for data dissemination, and also enhancing and strengthening our data about gun ownership, safety, and use specifically. We are also conducting work around supporting community engagement with children, youth, and families. That includes promoting healthy family environments and quality early learning opportunities, connecting children, youth, and families, especially those at high risk of violence engagement, to high quality, community-based, and culturally relevant programs and services to promote health and social wellness. Expanding our sexual assault primary prevention programming that exists in Madison and Dane County, and also increasing employment and workforce development opportunities for youth. In our Fostering Strong Neighborhoods goal area, we are looking to improve government community relations, build resident leadership and collective action, and also connect residents to resources to improve their quality of life. Also looking to strengthen relationships between police and community and improve cultural responsiveness and support cultural identity of community members. In our bolster and increase intervention and continuous healing for those affected by violence, this is our largest area of work, or goal area, I should say, looking to create support systems that respond to individual and community needs prior to, during, and following violent incidences. Exploring group violence intervention models, promoting culturally responsive and trauma-informed care and treatment, strengthening treatment and healing services for survivors specifically of sexual assault, domestic violence, and violence within home environments, creating better systems to identify and support people at risk for self-harm and suicide, strengthening and increasing restorative justice in courts, child welfare institutions, schools, and community settings through better coordination between organizations, and also reduce disproportionate arrest and incarceration. And last but certainly not least, our goal area of strengthening community capacity, collaboration, and coordination of violence prevention efforts. This is very much rooted in the ideology that together we can do more and better. And so we are looking to support opportunities for violence prevention capacity, create mechanisms for sustainable funding, increase coordination of violence prevention efforts in Madison and Dane County as a whole, and also increase violence prevention evaluation capacity and accountability. So I know that was a lot to take in, and again, happy to have any follow-up questions at a later time. And also if you want to just take a look at the plan, it is available on our website. So next steps that PHMDC is working on, again, we are hiring and onboarding our violence prevention coordinators and violence prevention managers positions. We will be hosting an introduction to the violence prevention roadmap webinar at the end of this month. We'll be sending a save the date, hopefully sometime this week. And that will be an opportunity for us to walk through the plan a little more in depth, and also allow for organizations and community members to ask some of the burning questions that we've been getting since it's released. We will continue to work with CDD, or Community Development Division, on the COVID-19 violence prevention RFP that was released on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. And we are also looking to relaunch the Madison and Dane County Violence Prevention Coalition this summer, hopefully following the hiring and onboarding of our new coordinator and manager. And so speaking of the coalition, just a friendly reminder, this is the kind of structure and way that we are hoping to facilitate the coalition moving forward. And that is with public health playing that critical support role around technical assistance, evaluation, planning, data, and really using the coalition as a hub of partners and organizations that are doing work in the violence prevention arena. And then using each of the goal areas, or as they're mentioned here, as kind of more the overlying strategies to center and coordinate the work within each of those bigger goal areas. And so I also wanted to give an update on kind of our milestone projections for 2021. I know I spoke about this at the last CCE meeting I attended, and I just want to remind everyone as I walk through this one, the lines dictate certain months, but we are looking at this from a quarterly perspective, and I don't know how to change the lines, so forgive me for that. And so within quarter one, which will be wrapping at the end of March, we actually have completed our 3 milestones, which is great. We have released the roadmap to reduction plan. We have worked with CDD to release that RFP around violence and COVID relief. And we have started outreach to partners around the relaunch of our coalition. So we are on track for a promising quarter 2, and hopefully we'll continue that throughout the year. And that is the end of my update. So I will stop sharing my screen, and I'm happy to take questions.
Ariel, can you just explain real quickly the RFP in case anyone is not aware of it? Thank you.
Oh, sure, I can. And I think I also saw Jim O'Keefe on the call. So I
didn't see Jim. Okay, I'll save my question. Go ahead, Alder Bedard, and I'll come back to Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carter. Actually, that was one of my questions. But first, I want to thank you so much, Ariel, for all the work that you've been doing. This roadmap was something that many of us had been waiting for a long time. And it's just really great to see a comprehensive document that really outlines all the different areas of work that needs to be done. So thank you very much. One question that I have for you is, once we have the 2 positions, so the coordinator and manager, how many positions in total will we have that are dedicated, like FTEs that are dedicated to violence prevention within public health?
Great question. So we will have a total of 4 FTE. And so as a reminder, we currently have a data analyst. We have a violence prevention response and engagement coordinator, which was the initial position we asked for, but actually we had a staff member that had just moved into that position. We will have a violence prevention coordinator, and then we will have a manager to oversee that unit as a whole. There is a portion of my FTE that is also designated to that. I will be honest, I'm not entirely sure what the split is right now, but I could get back to you on what that percentage of my time also looks like.
Thank you. And so my second question was actually because we discussed at Community Services, the RFP, it was the same question that President Carter had about hearing what the split is in the amounts that the RFP is for and what areas. So thank you.
And I'm not sure if Jim wants to take that question, or I'm happy to pull up my notes on that and take that.
Ariel, I was not prepared to speak to that. If you've got your notes handy, I'd welcome the assist. Otherwise, I can dig those out.
Sure. I can dig out my notes, but in the meantime, I can also answer another question if I pull those out.
Okay, Tad, do you have a question while we're trying to get the notes for the RFP?
Yeah, my question's real simple. I got to this meeting late, so I missed almost all the presentation. I noticed that it's not in Legistar. Could you have it sent out to all alders so we have the PowerPoint and can look at it at our own convenience?
Yes, I can. And I will say that Lisa asked for it beforehand, and I've just been in back-to-back meetings all day. So it will be, I believe, attached in the minutes too, but we can make sure that gets sent out.
Super, thank you. And I also want to join Alder Bedard in expressing my appreciation for your work on this very vital contribution to our city.
Thank you so much. And I was able to pull my notes so I can track back to that question. In terms of the violence prevention RFP, we have 3 areas in which we will be allocating funding. The first being a community safety direct outreach program. In some spaces or for some programming that's known as also community safety workers or community safety outreach workers. They've got different working names. But looking to work with an organization to help us develop a little bit more of a formal program model around this, just so that we can better identify roles between public health and PD and other service agencies to help support those organizations in their work moving forward. And also at the suggestion of Alder Vidar, we shifted some funding around, and so we will also be able to provide implementation funds. And so those funds will be used for organizations to continue their community safety direct outreach programming while they're helping us develop that program model. And so that amount will be for up to $60,000. The next funding area is for youth violence prevention through middle school programs and youth employment expansion. That work is a little more self-explanatory. It's really to provide some extended opportunities for youth to engage in meaningful and gainful employment. And so that funding threshold has a minimum of $75,000 and a maximum of $175,000. And then the third area is to help individuals and families who have been impacted by violence meet their basic needs. And so I will give a very rough overview and summary of this. Essentially, it's really any basic needs that a family may be struggling with at this time, and organizations and programs that have systems in place to help deliver funding in a variety of ways to individuals and families. The only stipulation on this funding is that it cannot be used to support housing directly, and that's because of the other allocation and RFP that is out that is specific to housing and housing insecurity. And so the minimum threshold for that area is $75,000 and the maximum is $175,000. And so total amount that we have allocated to this RFP is $225,000.
To Alder McKinney.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Ariel, thank you very much. I wanted to add my appreciation for this overview. My question is that you were given some budgetary allocations, and so these are estimated. Well, is that a part of the report that you will be sending out to all alders? Is that, so you are going from your notes. So my question is that those minimums, maximums that you are discussing, is that a part of the report that you will be sending out to all alders?
It wasn't, but I pulled this from my notes on the RFP, which is released via the CDD website, but I'm also happy to send the summary page that I usually keep of all of the high points of the RFP funding.
Okay, that would be my request, that would be included so that we could have in our possession those rough estimates that you presented. Thank you.
Sure. Jim, can you send the RFP out to all alders so they can have that RFP?
Certainly. Be happy to do that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ariel? And I want to add with everyone else, thank you so much, Ariel. It was very educational and very detailed. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you all for the continued support.
And we will move on to item 6. And Lisa will give the update on the transition plan.
Let's see.
And all of you know that Lisa will be retiring on April 2nd. So here is the transition plan, which we will continue to work on. Go ahead, Lisa.
Sure. I emailed executive committee members the transition plan this afternoon and attached it also in Legistar. So if you're looking for it, that's where it is as well. I just tried to basically break down some of the major activities that I do and who will be doing them once I'm gone. I did speak with Eric Viam that oversees the administrative support team last week, Wednesday or Thursday, and he met with Common Council staff at our meeting on Friday, and was able to let current council staff know that he has booked the administrative support team starting on April 12th through June 18th. The services that they can provide to the council office are answering phones, taking messages, distributing mail, and assisting with mailings. So that may take some of the pressure off during high volume times of when Debbie and Karen are working with various alders. I also just divvied out where payroll is going to be done, how bills are going to be paid, how purchasing cards are going to be done. Debbie will be trained on learning how to invoice developers for postage costs. And then all the reimbursements, I still need to kind of think through that process a little bit more of how alders asked to be reimbursed for various expenses. And then budget entry, where we are entering the budget. I'll have to work with finance department staff to train whoever's hired to replace me to work on the budget and entering that. Open records requests, I still have to work on that process because that's a little involved depending upon how those requests are made, how big those files are. As some of you know, some of those larger files, I've had to start using a SharePoint site for you to go in and review because the PDFs are way too big to send via email. Legistar training will continue to be done. The basic training is done by the city clerk's office. And then in-depth training for city staff and committees will have to be transitioned to the new person. Alder resolutions will continue to be done by Debbie and I believe Karen, and Karen can jump in. She knows how to enter resolutions. Press releases are also done by Debbie and Karen, and they'll have to train the new person. Updates to the council webpage itself, I'll have to work with Debbie on getting access to that and then having it transition to the new person. Council agenda review, the council president and the vice president will continue to review the initial draft and the final draft. Alder Mike Revere has volunteered to be added on as an additional extra set of eyes for the initial and final draft. And then when the new person is hired, they'll have to be transitioned into doing that job as well. The council agenda consent agenda, that is the exclusion list that is sent out. Debbie will have to take on that task. She's done it before, and then transition it to the new person. CCEC, Karen will be staffing the meeting, creating the agenda and the minutes. Once the new person's hired, they'll have to be transitioned to that. In terms of staffing executive committee, I assume it will be Karen since we don't have a council chief of staff hired, but that can be discussed after I leave. Then incoming alders, I have been working with HR, payroll staff, and IT staff into transitioning new people in and how that'll be done. Orientation sessions have been scheduled with the council president and the vice president, and council staff will have to manage that process after I leave. The meetings have been set up in Zoom already, so those sessions have been booked in Zoom, and some of that work from transitioning the new alder orientation sessions can be transitioned to the new person in terms of coordinating those efforts, and they can be trained to do that. And outgoing alders, Debbie's drafting the commendation resolutions. That can be transitioned to the new person when they come. Currently working with IT staff on transitioning the email and network access, and then that the new person will have to learn how to do. And then also inactivating access to the CCB, MMB barcode stickers for outgoing alders. So that's just a big dump of transition stuff. That is, of course, not everything. And so I just wanted to give you an idea that there are things that I've been working on in transitioning. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Alder McKinney.
Thank you, Madam President. Lisa, thank you very much. My question is very simple, and I know that you're still working on the transition. Is that when you look at all the duties, tasks, and responsibilities that you have currently, they have been reassigned to either Debbie or Karen. Is that correct? Is that how you drafted the transition plan? Took all your duties, responsibility, and reassigned them? That's the first question. And the second question is there any overlapping? I mean, will there be a clarity in terms of who's going to be responsible for what rather than two people doing the same thing? That's my question. Thank you.
Sure. A lot of what is going to be done, a big chunk of what's done in our Munis system is actually going to be done by finance department. And so this council staff will not be doing any of that work. I think that's just trying to train them and it's just very overwhelming. So I've worked with David Schmidtke and his staff to work on all those various pieces that are done in Munis to have that handled by their department. So I think that'll take some of the pressure off, doing the financial part of it. In terms of transitioning over to various parts of what I do, a lot of things Debbie and Karen can do. I think if council wants to decide that you want one point person on something, say, entering resolutions, you're just going to have to let us know. But I think having that shared duty is, particularly since we're down 2 people in the office, we're probably going to need to do that just because otherwise it's going to be overwhelming on top of everything else that the current 2 office people are doing. So that's just my thought.
Alder Kimball.
Thanks. And thanks, Lisa, for sending us out that report and linking it in Legistar. It made me wonder that as you're documenting those issues that you have documented on that table, are you compiling information like for a handbook or for the next person? Are you documenting, going into more detail about each one of these things? So the next person or, your current colleagues in the office can have more information about those tasks?
Sure. I think a lot of the tasks that I will be documenting will require training by other departments. So when we're talking about Munis training, that's all done by finance. If we're talking about getting training in Legistar, that will have to be done by the city clerk's office because there really isn't anybody else other than me that can do that type of training. I mean, there are resources, online that are available to city staff. In terms of doing maybe like the open records requests, that is done a lot by the IT staff. So there's going to be a lot of training by various departments that are going to be required. That's why some of those things I broke out to other departments so that we're not having to train Debbie or Karen in addition to all their other job duties. If we're training them, and then it's going to have to be trained for this new person to do. It's up to you how you want to do it, but I'll be documenting what kinds of training this new person will be needed to do. I had to be trained on Munis. I had to go to classes. I had to learn how to use it because it was all totally new. But I know the finance department has training protocols set up for that.
Yeah, sure. I wasn't meaning like you literally write a training handbook on everything you do. I meant in a document pointing to where that training can be done. And then for our really office specific processes that you run, like that would be on you to leave a breadcrumb trail for the next person.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't imagine not leaving some breadcrumbs.
Alder McKinney.
Thank you, Madam President. I have one follow-up question. I know, Lisa, you talked about the distribution of some of your tasks. Was there, and some will just be pure clerical, clerical things. Has there been any discussion about hiring or bringing in a temporary person, or is that completely off the table?
Well, as I said before, we have the administrative support team starting on April 12th through June 18th, and they're more of that clerical support. So they would be able to answer the phones, which is what Debbie does right now, is answer the phones and take messages and, get those off to you. I mean, that would alleviate some of that pressure. Also, dealing with mail that comes in. I mean, they could come in here in the office and just, if every couple of days come in and distribute mail. Not that, there's a lot. I don't know when the building's going to reopen, but it may not be before the new person is hired and in place. It may not be until, I don't know when. I mean, I don't know what the thinking is about that. So I think being remote, it's a lot easier to kind of, have things like the phone forwarded to that one of those administrative support people to answer the phone and be able to, take those messages and get that information out. I'm assuming that would alleviate a lot of like things that Debbie's doing of answering the phone. But there's really, when you're talking about clerical, to me, the things that the administrative support team that we were told is answering the phones, taking messages, distributing mail, helping with mailings if need be.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we will go right into new Alder orientation schedule, which you all have. Are there any questions regarding that? I will say that both Alder Abbas and I will be meeting with department heads to go into more detail on their orientation. And then on April 10th, we will have the council office orientation.
You're really hard to get a hold of.
What? Then on April 10th, we will have that orientation. Are there any questions? Okay. We will move on to item 8. And we did ask Attorney Haas, which you all got his memo. So I will ask Attorney Haas to, hi, Attorney Haas, if you can give us some idea, a brief overview of your memo.
Sure,
in case some people haven't been able to read it.
Sure. Thank you, President Carter. I wanted to just at the outset let the committee know that these are not all my ideas. I tried to kind of brainstorm and collect ideas from other city staff who've been around. I'm also not under the illusion that these are ideal solutions or even good or great ideas, but I was asked to just put together some ideas, potential ideas for reducing the length of Common Council meetings. And so that is what this memo intends to do, is to at least start the conversation. So I won't go through it in detail unless you have questions. I tried to sort of, in a neutral way, describe what some options were and some pros and cons. And one of the, I guess, starting with one of the simpler ones, number one is simply beginning meetings earlier, which doesn't necessarily reduce the time, but maybe it results in meetings ending earlier in the evening. A couple of suggestions have to do with the public comment period. There is the option under the ordinance to have all public comments at the beginning of a meeting. Again, it's uncertain really whether that would end up shortening meetings or even if meetings might go longer because people don't have to stick around all evening to submit their public comments. But there might be some other benefits as far as participation and basically hearing all the public comments at once so the council could sort of continue with its flow of business without going back and forth for public comments. We also listed potentially reducing the public comment time that's allowed for speakers, possibly both for regular public comment and for public hearings, which is 5 minutes rather than 3 minutes. A couple of other maybe more significant departures would be to hold separate public comment meetings of the council or to require all public comments to be submitted at the BCC level. Obviously, there's some pros and cons and significant changes if the council would go in that direction. But again, we're just throwing those ideas out there. There's also obviously the option always for people to submit written comments. Then other than public comments, we also identified potentially further reducing the allowable time for alders to speak on topics, which is set out in the ordinance currently. And then also establishing like a set ending time. Again, probably not a perfect solution, but it is an idea. As I heard once in a movie, they're ideas. They may not be good ideas, but they're ideas nonetheless for the council to consider. So I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if the committee has them.
Are there any questions? Alder Kimball?
I don't have a question. I just want to remind all of us that we literally had a task force on government structure that met for 2 years and that came up with a lot of suggestions for improving council meetings and improving our boards, commissions, and committee structure and meetings. And currently the TFOG's implementation work group is working on preparing for a committee of the whole discussion around around the format and of our council meetings moving forward. So I think we can look forward to a discussion about council meetings very soon, and that the chair of the TFOG's implementation committee will be bringing forth all of the collective knowledge and thinking that went into those years of work.
And will you also be bringing in the memo that Attorney Haas just wrote?
No, that hasn't been part of our work. I think you just brought it in now. So, if someone would like to bring that in, but, those and many more ideas were, like Attorney Haas said, those weren't original ideas. Those were ideas that some of them were discussed and talked about in TFOGs. And so were many, many others. So, there's no, anyone could bring that up. But I think if, Alder, you want to work with Alder Furman about the structure of how that goes, that would be good.
Alder McKinney.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I, as presented by Attorney Haas, these are suggestions, and I would, what is the process to have these suggestions incorporated with the discussion about overall structure of boards, committees, and commissions? So I would like this document that was presented today to be a part of that conversation as well for consideration.
Thank you.
Is that a recommendation? Does that have to be official, or what is the process?
Attorney Haas, she's asking what would be the process to have that included, or maybe Alder Kimball can answer that, or Alder Furman if he's on.
If the vehicle for discussing this will be the TFOG's implementation committee, this information can certainly be referred to that committee if you want to do that formally. If CCC or the council wants to consider it in any other, form, they have that option as well. But
okay, and I would like to formally, and I haven't sent it over officially, but I would like formally to request that the document as read by Attorney Haas be referred to the implementation committee for consideration. And if I can have a second, I'd appreciate it.
Alder Abbas.
Second.
And I'll speak to that. Because we're having an open discussion of what our city government will look like, and literally going until 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, we must look at our structure. We must begin to look at our own health and well-being, and how can we have a consistency in terms of some committees are very consistent in terms of following protocol procedures that are in place, and some committees are not. And so even if we could get what is consistent, over that would help. But definitely we must begin to look at whether it is we're serving the community by meeting to 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, mentally it's draining, and I don't know if we're putting our best. I know for me, are we clearly putting our best efforts forward on behalf of the people that we represent? And so that's why this should be a part of the consideration. And that's why I'm pulling it forward to make it official that it is a part of that consideration.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Attorney Haas, do we need to, is that enough, or do we need to do a vote? Okay, is there any objection to me recording a unanimous vote? I see no objection. I will record a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. And Attorney Alder Abbas.
No, sorry, let me turn on the camera. I do not have any more question. I think it's addressed.
Okay, great. I have to echo what Alder McKinney said about the length of the meetings. This has been a discussion since 2015, prior to TFOG's existence. So, and probably Alder Badar can go back further than me. So we have been discussing the length of the meetings for some time now, and I think that is really time to actually act on that. And I just wish we could have acted on it before some of our seniors alders left, so they could have enjoyed a shorter meeting before their term was out. But we forge on. Alder Badar.
Thank you. Yeah, I think clearly this has been an issue for, I think, forever with council meeting, and it has ebbed and flowed as far as the length of meetings and suggestions on how to shorten the meeting. So since and I think again the discussion at the TFOG's implementation and bringing it back to the next council for some conversations and agreement amongst the kind of the new council will be really important. I just wanted to take advantage to just share a couple of my own comments for all of you. So one is that one thing that I think is really important to consider is that when there is items specifically that we know are going to have many speakers or are controversial, to allow for staff to provide a quick summary of the item and where the item is at, because sometimes there is a substitute. Members of the public may not be following all the flurry of maybe activity that has gone out in sometimes the last 24 hours before the council meeting. So providing that summary before the public testimony in the past has been really useful. So that's one suggestion. The other suggestion is that I think there is an inconsistency, and I think that's something that TFOG certainly talked about in the how emails from the public get entered into Registar and into the legislative file for that item. So, for example, Plan Commission is really good about like everything that gets sent, it gets entered, but that is not the case for everything that we do, including emails that are sent to all alders. So having a really clear way that they are entered into legislative file, because I think that many members of the public, because they don't see that entered, they don't know that it's entered, they feel like they also have to come to the council meeting because they don't see their testimony on record if they've sent it in advance. So that's another thing that I wanted to mention. And the third thing that I wanted to mention is the role of council leadership and the support that council needs to give to council leadership to manage the agenda of the council, and giving some leeway to council leadership to may have to balance the agendas and postpone an item to if there is not a time urgency, so that if items, a couple of different items that have many speakers or controversy are stacked in the same council agenda, that one can be pushed to another meeting. So those are just top of mind of my suggestions that I just wanted to make sure to mention. And again, they're also not particularly new, and I know have been discussed.
Thank you. Alder Abbas.
Yeah, some really good suggestions. I absolutely agree. We need to look into improving the efficiencies of the meeting. I think so. After this referendum, information will come out that will also give us the next council to think about it. If the council is going to remain part-time, so how we're going to improve the efficiencies. Another thing is this, I think so we should also look at legislative level on when people sign up, they have option. Yes, I want to speak. No, I do not want to speak. And, neither support, neither favor, support or not support. I think so we need to also look into that, especially for the planning process. Sometimes people don't want to say, I support. Sometimes they don't want to say, I do not support. They want to say amendment. They prefer an amendment. So we might, I think so TFOX, when we have a committee as a whole, I look forward to have all those discussions and see how we can make our process much more efficient and inclusive. Thanks.
Thank you. Alder Foster.
Thanks. Just want to take the opportunity to reinforce that point that was raised by Alder Bidar and again by Vice President Abbas around the ability to have a better system for written comment. So this was also a key recommendation of the President's Work Group on Communication Processes and is a key TFOG recommendation. And we have the ability, there's a Legistar product that could do this really well. So I'm just putting it out there right now because we need to prioritize this in our next budget cycle to get it to happen. Because we don't have to suffer through it, but IT does not have the capacity to make it happen right now. So we need as a council, if we prioritize this, we need to fund it and prioritize it and make sure it happens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alder McKinney.
I just wanted to commend the work of the Communications Committee that Alder Foster chaired. I mean, there was some excellent work that went into that body. I mean, we had limitations in terms of what we could delve into, but there was some really very, very excellent work. And so all of that should not be lost. I mean, reinventing the wheel, that should also be on the table as we are looking at how can we have a more efficient way of not only communicating to the general public, but among ourselves. And so again, that report is also one that was was excellently written, and it should not be on the shelf as a completed report.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 9. This is a recommended action for referral.
And we also have some speakers, Alder Carter.
Correct. So we will go with the speakers.
The first speaker is Mick Conrad, opposing, wishing to speak.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead, Mick.
Good afternoon. I really appreciate the council recognizing a need to assist men convicted of sex offenses with shelter at the city's permanent men's homeless facility. Some men come to a shelter because other housing options are simply not available to them. These men need a place to stay that won't cause them to violate state or local sex offender residency laws. I assume this is why the city said the men's homeless shelter site must be, quote, greater than 1/2 mile from school or daycare, end quote. The 2002 Zaire Road site fails this 1/2 mile threshold test. First, the 2002 Zaire Road site is 1/5 of a mile from a planned 15,000 square foot daycare facility at 2102 East Springs Drive. The city gave its official conditional use approval for this daycare facility on August 15th, 2019. The daycare facility will serve 100 children. Many of these children will be from low-income families. Second, currently there's a daycare facility at 2255 Independence Lane, and this daycare facility is less than 1/2 mile from 2002 Zaire Road. Put simply, the 2002 Zaire Road site doesn't meet your own site selection criteria. Please choose a site that is greater than 1/2 mile from a school or a daycare. Wisconsin law requires certain sex offenders to stay at a residence not less than 1,500 feet from any child care facility. The 2002 Zaire Road site would be off limits to this class of sex offenders by being only 1,081 feet from the daycare at 2102 East Springs Drive. I ask, does the city have a plan in place to assist these folks that cannot stay at this facility? Please follow your own site selection criteria. Your site must be greater than 1/2 mile from school or daycare. I commend council for showing a strong interest in ensuring that children feel safe in public places, as evidenced by section 26.13 of the Madison Municipal Code, which states, quote, the city has a strong interest in ensuring that residents, including children, feel safe in public places. In order to reduce the potential risk of harm to children in our city, there is a need to limit the opportunity for offenders of serious crimes against children from having an opportunity to have contact with unsupervised children. This ordinance covers locations that are primarily designed for use by or are primarily used by children, namely school grounds, playgrounds, and daycare facilities. Don't put a men's homeless shelter by a daycare. I respectfully ask that you choose a men's homeless shelter site greater than 1/2 mile from a school or daycare, not 2002 Zaire Road. Please follow your own site selection criteria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mick. Our next speaker
is LeAnn Conrad, opposing, wishing to speak.
Hello.
Go ahead, LeAnn.
What?
Go ahead, LeAnn.
Okay, am I on?
You sure are.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to comment. I am the owner of the property at 2001 Zaire Road, just across the street. It is a corner lot with East Springs Drive on one side and Zaire Road on the other. I purchased the property on January 3rd of 2020. Obviously, this was way before COVID-19 was even on the radar. I have invested a very large amount of money into the property and a lot of time and effort. And because of the pandemic occurring, I'm struggling along with everyone else. I only have a few regular customers. They have already told me that if the homeless shelter goes in, they will not be coming to my business. I assume that they're not the only ones that are concerned. I would guess that there will be many people who will no longer feel comfortable coming to the area for shopping or dining. I would guess that many businesses will go under. This in turn creates more unemployment, which creates more homelessness. So it seems to me you're actually adding to the problem instead of taking care of it. The city of Madison spent a lot of time and resources on planning the revitalization or redevelopment of the Easttown area. I was excited to be a part of that. In fact, I heard about I believe, $100 million project going in right by me. I thought, wow, what a wonderful jumpstart to the revitalization of the area. I would guess there would be a good chance that more development would follow and the area would begin to flourish again. However, if the men's shelter does go in, that project will die. There would be no redevelopment of any kind. No one would invest in property around a men's homeless shelter. No one wants to live or work near a men's homeless shelter. So instead of revitalizing the Easttown area, it seems to me the city has chosen to effectively condemn the area. So I would like to know, why has the city thrown out all plans to redevelop the Easttown area? I don't understand.
Thank you, LeAnn. Our next speaker.
Joe Dupere, he opposes. He doesn't want to speak, but he is available to answer questions representing Easttown Mall.
Okay, are there any questions for Joe? I do not see any questions at this time, Lisa. We'll go on to the next person.
Okay, the rest of our registrants do not wish to speak. Carl Patzer opposing, Carmen Nordness opposing, Adam Clemen supporting, and Sherry Patzer opposing.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will go into, well, now that that is over with, can we get a motion?
I move referral.
Can I get, it's been properly moved. Can I get a second? We have a second for referral. Would you like to speak to that? Oh, okay, Elder Hennick, you did put your hand down. We have, it's been moved and properly second. Does anyone object to referring this to the March 30th CCEC meeting? I see no objections, so I will record a unanimous vote for referral to the March 30th CCEC meeting. Thank you. With that, we've come to the end of our agenda. Are there any other items to discuss? If not, then I will need a motion to adjourn. Oh, Alder Hennick.
So moved.
Okay, and can I get a second?
Alder Carter, if you don't mind, I want to propose something to discuss. Could we have,
sure.
Could we have a deputy mayor, Christy, to give us presentation and update on PFAS, because the report is due in mid-April and our next common council meeting will be on 20th April. So next CCEC, if we can get that presentation, that would be great. Sorry, guys, there's a lot of action.
That's okay. But you're saying for the next CCEC meeting, correct?
Yes, if we can add in.
Yes.
Yes, please.
We will put her on the next one. It's been, thank you, Alder Abbas. It's been moved and seconded for adjournment. I will record a unanimous vote. Thank you, and we'll see you guys in an hour.